Today we're going to be talking about Lesion in Rainbow Six Siege. I got the footage and broke it down for you guys so we can take a look at the newest trap operator added to the game. Now Lesion was just added in the latest Operation Blood Orchid patch, and he's a defensive operator with the new Chinese Special Duties unit. He has 2 armor, effectively giving him 111 HP, and he is a 2-speed operator, meaning he moves at about 90% of full speed or at about 4.5 meters per second. Now first off, let's break down Legion's weapons. He has a T5 SMG. Up close, it deals 30 damage. It has a 900 round per minute fire rate, and it has 30 rounds per magazine. Now that fire rate is pretty high. You can dump an entire mag in exactly 2 seconds. It's on par with Bandit's MP7, but just slightly slower firing than the Vector 45 ACP. You can equip a red dot on this gun, a holographic or a reflex sight, and the irons on it are a bit odd, so it might be better to slap a sight on this weapon. And on the muzzle, you can equip a suppressor, a flash hider, a compensator, or a muzzle brake. Pretty standard attachments there. Because of the low damage and relatively high fire rate, I recommend a compensator, but obviously it's going to boil down to personal preference. And you can throw a laser sight on this SMG. It might be a good idea since Lesion tends to be a very responsive operator. You may not have the opportunity to fully ADS before you're forced into an engagement. Lesion also comes with the SIX12 SD shotgun. It is a semi-automatic 6-round drum mag shotgun. It fires 8 pellets per shot, and up close, each of those pellets do 35 damage. And on top of that, this shotgun has an integrated suppressor. You can equip a red dot, a holographic, or a reflex sight onto the shotgun, but the iron sights aren't actually that bad, and personally, I choose to forgo any optics on this weapon. And in addition to that, you can also mount a laser onto this weapon. Definitely going to be a good idea since this weapon is all about going to be close range engagements. Firing from the hip is going to be a common occurrence. And as a trusty sidearm, Lesion carries a Q929. It is a semi-automatic 10-round pistol that deals 50 damage up close. Now you can't equip any optics onto this pistol, but it does have some very nice iron sights which provide a very open sight picture. On the muzzle, however, you can attach a silencer or a muzzle brake. You can also equip a laser onto this weapon. And last but not least, Lesion can choose to equip either 2 impact grenades or 1 deployable shield. Obviously, that's going to be down to your personal preference. I am an impact grenade man myself. Now let's really break down the damage numbers and values of Legion's weaponry. Legion's SMG does 30 damage up close, but around 18 meters it begins to fall off in damage, and after 28 meters it falls off to its minimum value of 20 damage. Now, if you actually throw a suppressor on the SMG, those damage values decrease a bit, and the actual damage values aren't the same as the damage values listed on the menu in-game. The in-game menu is actually incorrect. Up close with a suppressor, the SMG actually deals 26 damage, and after 28 meters, a SMG with the suppressor only deals 16 damage. Now, Legion's shotgun, on the other hand, has an even closer optimal range. It deals 35 damage per pellet, and it fires 8 pellets, which means this shotgun is incredibly lethal up close. But after just 6 meters, its damage begins to fall off. And once you hit 22 meters, this weapon is only going to actually deal 12 damage per pellet, and most of your pellets at that range aren't even going to hit your target. And even in through some miracle, all of your pellets did hit the target, it wouldn't be enough to one-shot kill them. For obvious reasons, you want to use the shotgun up close. It's actually still fairly deadly up to about 10 meters away, but it goes into that overpowered one-shot kill zone anywhere between 0 and 6 meters. Now let's briefly talk about the damage the pistol does. I don't think a lot of people realize that this pistol actually packs a serious punch. Up close, it'll deal 50 damage. However, it has an even shorter fall off than the SMG, beginning to fall off at 12 meters and being completely fallen off in its damage at 22 meters, at which point this weapon deals half of its damage, only 25 damage per shot. If you want to throw a suppressor on this pistol, and again, the actual damage numbers are different than what is displayed in the menus in-game where the information is actually incorrect. Up close, this weapon will deal 44 damage with a suppressor, and at a distance, it's going to look to deal 21 damage. So let's take a look at all of the weapon damages in one chart so we can make some assumptions and comparisons. Obviously, the shotgun is the best weapon up close. This graph can be a little misleading because that 35 damage of the shotgun is per pellet and it's firing 8 pellets. So it is just a beast up close. And if you are anticipating to be taking fights, to be camping in spaces where you're going to be having fights closer than 10 meters, the shotgun is the obvious weapon of choice. Now, the pistol seems like a really good weapon here. It deals a ton of damage, almost twice as much as the SMG per shot, but due to its limited magazine, due to its semi-automatic firing, and its lack of optics, it's not really going to be necessarily the best weapon to take in a closer engagement, but it does pack a punch, and in a pinch, it can really get you out of tight situations. Now, the SMG is a decent weapon, but it's not the best weapon in terms of defenders, and it's definitely not the best weapon when you compare it to attacker rifles. Up close, it does not deal that much damage, and at a distance, it deals a rather pathetic amount of damage. And as I'm going to add to the graph here now, if you add suppressors to it, this weapon does a really paltry amount of damage. So let's talk about the SMG's time to kill. So because we know the fire rate of this weapon, and because it can be fired in fully automatic, we can figure out exactly how long it would take to kill somebody at different ranges, assuming all of your shots land. Now, if we look at the time to kill of the SMG against a lightly armored opponent such as Ash, you're actually going to see that it takes 4 shots up close and only 5 shots at a distance to kill that opponent. That's looking at a 0.2 or a 0.27 second time to kill, which is actually fairly quick and is not too terrible. But once you start fighting medium armored opponents, you can see that at a distance, it jumps up to 6 shots to kill and a time to kill of 0.3 seconds. That's not terrible, but the real issue with his SMG comes when you have a heavy armored enemy. A heavily armored enemy is going to take 7 shots to kill at range. That is a time to kill of 0.4 seconds. That's a lot of time for them to react, and that's a lot of time for them to potentially get shots off back at you. Now, this problem is made much worse on the SMG if you add a suppressor to it. Even a lightly armored operator will take 7 shots to kill at range with the SMG. That's a time to kill of 0.4. That's the same time to kill for a heavy armored opponent on an SMG without a suppressor. And this only gets worse when the enemies have better armor. A medium armored opponent's TTK at range is the same, but up close it actually takes 5 shots to kill now. And a heavy armored opponent at range will take 8 shots to kill with this SMG with a suppressor. That is a time to kill of 0.47 seconds. And the thing to consider here is that your average human response time is about 0.2, 0.25 seconds. So it's almost double that to get a kill on somebody. So that's a lot of time for that individual to react to the fire. So sometimes this can be kind of abstract and hard to visualize, but 20 meters is about the distance that the SMG falls out of its optimum range, and 20 meters on Cafe is about the distance from in the middle of the entrance to the kitchen to the northmost window that enters the bakery. So just bear that in mind when you're thinking about these numbers and looking at these graphs. So finally, let's get into Legion's goo trap. Lesion starts with 1 goo trap and every 35 seconds gets another added to his inventory. He can have a total of 7, and that is both held on his person or deployed. He can never have or have used more than 7 goo traps. Now, when you deploy a goo trap, you throw it like a grenade. It can't stick to walls or ceilings, and it will always fall to the floor. Once it falls to the floor, it will activate. Its top will pop off, and it will cloak itself. The cloaking is actually visible, though it is very hard to see, and depending on the ground around it, is almost impossible to see it sometimes. As seen here in these examples, sometimes it's relatively obvious to make out, and sometimes it's almost impossible to really detect. Now, if you manage to score a direct hit on somebody with a goo trap, if you throw it at an enemy, you will actually deal 3 damage on direct impact. So once it's deployed, it's active, and anytime someone comes within its activation range, they will be hit by the goo mine. The activation range is surprisingly large, and because of that, if you place a mine on a choke point such as a doorway or certain stairwells, you can be fairly sure that in order for someone to get past the goo mine, they either need to step on on it or destroy it. For every goo trap Lesion places, he gets a HUD icon that can be seen through walls. When a trap is destroyed, that HUD element will silently go away. You will not get notification, but if you pay attention, you might be able to notice where a goo trap has been destroyed. If an enemy player steps on a goo trap, however, you will receive points and you will be notified that a goo trap has hurt an enemy. However, you will not be told exactly what goo trap hurt that enemy, though again, that HUD element will disappear, so if you pay attention, you can notice it that way. There's also a sound effect and an enemy cry that happens, so if you have good positional audio, you can potentially figure out which trap it was that way as well. Now, another thing to mention here is you can actually pick up your goo traps. If you decide that you want to reposition them as the round goes on, you can pick them up as many times as you'd like and redeploy them. So when an enemy does step on a goo trap, they're going to immediately take 10 damage, and then every 2.5 seconds, they're going to take an additional 8 damage until they remove the goo trap. In order to remove the goo trap, they will have to hold down the F button, put away their weapon, and enter into an animation where they pull a needle out of their foot. If the player does not do that, they can actually suffer damage over time until they are downed. However, a down player will not continue to be poisoned and will instead just bleed out as normal. Now, there are a few interesting interactions here to talk about. Obviously, the first is when you are poisoned by a goo trap, you cannot sprint, and as soon as you step on that trap, your mouse speed is actually decreased very briefly. Other than that, though, you can do anything. You can throw grenades, you can fight, you can melee, you can crouch, you can prone, you just cannot sprint. If someone who is under the effects of a goo trap steps on another one, they will take an additional 10 instant damage, and they will actually reset the cooldown of the damage over time, in some ways actually delaying the damage over time of the first goo trap. And it should be noted here that armor does not reduce this damage, both the initial impact and the DOT. Now, if a down person steps on a trap, or if Lesion throws a trap at him that then activates underneath his body, that person is going to instantly die, even though the DBNO health is greater than 10. For whatever reason, there's some kind of conditional logic here. And if a down player touches a goo mine, they're going to be instantly killed. So how can you deal with goo mines? Well, Twitch drones can destroy them if they can see them. The goo mines appear on IQ's sensor for easy destruction, and even Thatcher's EMP grenades will destroy a room full of goo mines. Now, other than that, you can shoot goo mines to destroy them, you can use grenades to destroy them, but if you get close enough and you're careful enough, you can actually melee a mine to destroy it without activating it on yourself. So guys, that just about wraps up Lesion in his entirety. Just some kind of speculation, some theory crafting here. Lesion is a very strong operator. He gets stronger the longer you can make a round go on. His goo traps are incredibly useful, not just for damaging enemies, but for gaining information on where they are, even if they're just merely destroying the mines. His SMG is a little weak, but because it has such a high fire rate, you could potentially get a lot of headshots from it, so throwing a compensator on it seems to make the most sense to me. And his shotgun is potentially now one of the most powerful shotguns in the game, and having that integrated suppressor is very nice on top of it. I want to give a big shout out to Tutafa, who helped me collect and break down this footage. Leave a comment below if I got anything wrong, or if there's something I didn't answer that you would like answered. Subscribe if you guys want to see more OCD content. I'm Magnum Dopus. Keep crunching those numbers.